Good morning and welcome. This is Business Morning on Channels Television. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwa. We'll begin with the oil price update as prices rose this morning on hopes that the United States will reach a deal soon on a $2 trillion coronavirus aid package, which could blunt the economic impact of the outbreak, in turn support oil demand. Brent crude oil futures for May delivery rose by 62 cents to $27.65 a barrel, while West Texas Intermediate crude futures gained 76 cents to $24.12. Both price benchmarks had risen over $1 earlier before pulling back slightly. Oil is clawing its way higher, mainly on the back of the weaker dollar that stemmed from the Fed's unprecedented measures. The U.S. Federal Reserve on Monday rolled out an extraordinary array of programs to backstop an economy reeling from restrictions on commerce that scientists say are needed to slow the coronavirus pandemic. While a $2 trillion coronavirus economic stimulus package remained stored in the U.S. Senate on Monday as lawmakers haggled over its provisions, U.S. Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin voiced confidence that a deal would be reached soon. Still, the overall crude demand outlook remains low as long as travel restrictions are in place and government curtail commercial activities to prevent the coronavirus spread. And the Nigerian Stock Exchange has announced plans to trade remotely owing to the continuous spread of the coronavirus. The exchange announced that with effective today, March 24, 2020, it has activated a 30-day remote working plan for its employees, excluding essential staff. And in order to give its dealing members enough notice, effective Wednesday, March 25, all its trading floors will be temporarily closed, although remote trading will continue and NSE staff will be available through all digital platforms to provide support. The Nigerian Stock Exchange management is reassuring all stakeholders that it has put in place measures to ensure operations and trading activities continue seamlessly throughout this period. Dealing members are therefore encouraged to continue to trade remotely via the electronic platforms such as Fix Protocols and XNet, and reach out to their compliance officer if any support is required. The exchange will also provide manual support to members without remote access during this period. Issuers who have any businesses to conduct with the exchange can reach out to their relationship manager for guidance. You should also continue to submit all regulatory filings via Issuers Portal. As the exchange embraces social distancing as prescribed by Nigeria's Center for Disease Control, the exchange has further engaged with the federal government on issues of annual general meetings, maturing financial instruments, financial reporting, to mention a few, and appropriate updates will be provided in due course. All physical meetings within and outside the NSE premises have been suspended until further notice. Employees are encouraged to leverage technological tools to conduct meetings virtually. Well, the Central Bank of Nigeria over the weekend listed 10 pharmaceutical firms to benefit from the $100 billion naira funding facilities. The Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele, during his meeting with CEOs of Deposit Money Bank, says they are paying particular attention to the health industry because COVID-19 is particularly a health issue. And because of the need for local production, the committee identified a few key local pharmaceutical companies who shall be granted Naira and FX funding facilities to support procurement of raw materials and equipment required to exponentially increase local drug production in Nigeria. And these companies include Emzo, Fidzin, JSK, May & Baker, Unique Pharma, Swiss Pharma, Nimet, Saga, Orange Drugs, and Dana Pharma. Joining me now to look at this is the President, Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, Mr. Sam Ohuabunwa. Thank you very much, Mazi, as you're popularly known. It's been a while I had you on the show, and I hope you're coping very well with this COVID-19 outbreak.
God is helping us and we're doing our bit. Absolutely.
We just have to continue to stay safe. Now, how is this COVID-19 outbreak affecting business in pharmaceutical industry?
Well, as the CBN governor said, it's essentially a health crisis. It's a health crisis, and all segments of the health sector are in peril. First, the greatest problem is with the pharmaceutical, as you will know. The issue of our previous overdependence on importation of raw materials and finished products, essentially from China and India, and a few other countries in Europe, Germany and the UK. But we now have seen that China was shut down for a while and is still not fully back to business. India and some other countries that are sources of raw and finished products have decided to, deal with their own local domestic issues first before bothering about Nigeria. And so there is a potential delay in receiving stock replenishments and in getting raw materials from these sources. So right now there is a depression in production facilities because some of these raw materials are beginning to tank, and the products out in the marketplace are also not fully available. So what we now see is a reduction in production and a reduction in activities, both sales and manufacturing. And that is also causing problem even in our community practice and all facets of the profession, especially those items that are used for managing the crisis, the pandemic, not only the pharmaceutical products, but also equipment, things like face mask and all that. So we are seeing a heightened demand, but the supply is not equating right now.
All right, if we have to quantify some of the losses in the industry, how much would you say that the industry has lost, in terms of turnover?
Well, I believe that in the first quarter of this year, there has been a depression, and I'm sure that depending on which companies, but the industry will not have lost anything less than 5 billion in sales aggregated, given this shortfalls. And I think the problem is that the shortfalls might even worsen. The scarcity will worsen because we've carried inventory that we took over from last year to sustain production up to this point. But with these last 2 months of difficulty in getting goods and services, especially raw materials from those usual supply points, the problem of scarcity may worsen. However, the industry has risen up, really, and they are doing everything to make sure that they maintain unbroken product supply, because we understand that, I mean, if people need medication, they can't get them, and they're in crisis, then there's going to be a problem. So both the federal government and some of the new measures we're seeing are aimed at ensuring that we sustain a supply chain.
Now, with the 100 billion naira funding, what would that mean for the industry?
Well, I was really excited, and I probably would like to use this opportunity to congratulate the CBN governor and the Bankers Committee, because for me, this is the first time they have really shown that they have heard our cry. We have cried years on years. In 2017, we held a national conference in Ohuabunwa, and our theme was, how do we protect using drug supply, knowing that drug supply can be a national security matter. If we have a problem and we were creating scenarios, suppose we were at war, suppose something blocks our shores and all that, what will happen? And we made propositions and suggestions to government. Part of this is this: can we strengthen local manufacturing facility? What do we do to increase local research and then also production capacity? As of today, depending on who you're speaking to, you hear that Nigeria is only producing between 30 and 40% of its essential drugs. And so we're dependent on importing between 40 and 60%, depending on which status you're looking at. So right now, this is the stimulus we're looking for, because this is targeted stimulus. It's not the omnibus one for all manufacturers. This is to the industry, and I believe that if there's one good thing that should come out of this crisis, is that for once the industry has been focused upon and supported to be able to build up its capacity and increase its therapeutic offering so that a reduction, there'll be a major reduction in depending on external sources, both for finished and raw materials. It's a major move, and we are praying that this will happen exactly as prescribed.
Now, the central bank, of course, wants these drugs to be produced and manufactured here in Nigeria. Are you pharmacists ready for this? Are you capable of doing that?
We are. One of the things that we can be proud of is that we have the appropriate capacity. Both the pharmacists and the pharmaceutical technology that is required to produce medicines. We have research, pharmaceutical scientists, and pharmaceutical technologies, and then pharmacists, and all those who are in the chain of drug production. We have sufficient. We have the willingness. We have the capacity. What we didn't have is the financial support, because, you know, investment in manufacturing is long-term. And also in pharmaceutical, you need to do research and development. To bring out a product costs a lot of money. So we hope that since government says this, CBN says a long-term money with interesting tenure and moratoria and all that, we believe we can put some of it to finishing some of the research and development we have already started. And I also would believe that government should also consider an institution called National Institute for Pharmaceutical Research and Development. That is not the bank, but fiscal stimulus from the budget should be sent to that government institution to do more research. We have a lot of products on the pipeline coming from natural sources, from our plants, which this industry, this research institute can bring to the market and support the evolution of an indigenous pharmaceutical industry.
Now, is it a concern to you that in the industry, only about 10 pharmaceutical companies are mentioned to perhaps benefit from this funding? Are there some of your members who might just be feeling left out?
Yeah, sure, certainly. But you see, the CBN didn't make it a finite figure. If you read the release, they said this number, etc., what I read, included other people. I think they use their criteria maybe based on the companies that have submitted proposals before. You know, the Bankers Committee are dealing with companies, and they may have received proposals for funding from these companies. They may have seen that these companies are expanding their facilities and building new plants. I think that may be the basis on which this list was drawn. I am certain that other companies that qualify, who are members of the Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Group of Man, and who are members in good standing with the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, will support them to make sure that they get the same funding.
Now, are there other areas in the health sector that you think that would also be needing some kind of intervention? Exactly.
I just talked about research and development. I went ahead of myself to talk about the National Institute for Pharmaceutical Research and Development. And other universities, research is going on in different parts of Nigeria. But most of it is academic, and it cannot be useful except it's put in the form that is marketable. So we need funding to research and development. That may not come from CBN funding. It may not, because CBN funding, no matter how good they are, will have a tenure that is limited. But research is a long-term thing. And in research, you can succeed, you can fail. But one success overrides the failures. So I am asking that government should focus on that. Then for funding from banks or from financial institutions, I'm also sure that they're going to put some funding behind those who are not locally manufacturing, but who are in the distribution platform. Because as you know, it's one thing to manufacture products, it's another thing to get it to those who need it, especially in the hinterlands in a country as large as ours. So I think some funding also will be required to those in distribution who can move the manufactured products to the hinterland, because that's still a problem. Goods are manufactured, but then they don't get to the needed point. And also in distribution, you know, you need specific type of equipment. You don't just distribute drugs in open trucks. So we need temperature control, moisture control. So specialized logistics vehicles and equipment are also needed. And even at the point of collection, where the drugs are distributed, we need specialized warehouses. You know, there's something called CWC, Coordinated Wholesale Centers, which pharmacists and other investors are trying to build in some centers in Nigeria, in Kano, in Lagos, in Aba, I think in Onitsha, for the first set. Now, these centers are not able to start yet, because if they started, they will help to control inflow of drugs, and we can take drugs from the open markets where you find them today, because that's where drugs are denatured. That's where fake drugs infiltrate the system. But if we have these coordinated wholesale centers as approved by government, so I believe that funding should be given to this group of investors in Lagos, in Kano, in Aba, in Onitsha, and a few other places, so that we can use this opportunity to reorder. You know, they say there's something good in everything bad. I think this coronavirus, one good thing it will do, with sympathy to those who are ill and those who may have died, is that it has shown this country that we cannot continue to depend on the world, on China, especially for something as basic as medicine. After food, the next important thing is medicine. This is our cry over the many years in PMG Man, in Man. Today, it's been listened to, and we're happy.
Now, do you foresee any kind of challenges in assessing this fund? Because oftentimes we find out that, yes, the government might come up with some kind of intervention, but getting hold of such intervention is usually a challenge. You got it,
Chibueze. From my experience, you know, banks are usually risk averse, and they really do their best not to carry any risk if they, you know, and that has always caused issues with policy implementation. But most of the policies have been mandated, maybe by government. But I believe that this one that is now self-developed, it is the bankers themselves and the CBN have come with this proposal. I am more confident that they will be more willing to implement. That's my prayer, because banks always have this challenge in always ensuring that everything is perfect before the loans are given. And that's understandable. But given the urgency of the times, if they spend too much time in review and turning back and sending you back forward, then we might miss the opportunity. So I believe that the banks should be more business-like, be more market-oriented, and work with professionals. The Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria will be willing to offer them, you know, free consulting to assist the quick implementation of this. Being in the system, I have been in the system for long enough, so we can help to provide and support the provision of what they needed, so that the country can get the benefit. We are anxious that that happens. All right. Now, in all of these, what is your outlook for the pharmaceutical industry? Well, if these facilities are gotten quickly, in addition to the previous overall stimulus that CBN has continued to work on, and I must again congratulate CBN. They have shown a responsiveness that is impressive in this matter and a few others. So I will wish to say that if this happens, then the gaps that we estimate in the marketplace may be reduced. If this happens and other items in the stimulus are implemented, we might have a reduction in the market gaps. Of course, there will be, and that may lead to price gouging and all that, but if this comes to dampen that, because the main supply is assured, then the tendency or the pressure to increase prices may be slowed down. And I believe that at the end, Nigerians will be better for it, the industry will be better for it, and the professional pharmacists will be better for it, that once government is focusing on their need and something they've been speaking about. So the prospect and the morale of pharmacists are high. All right, let's hope we all get it right. By the grace of God, we will. All right, thank you very much, Mazi. Thank you, Chibueze. Mr. Sam Ohuabunwa is the President of Pharmaceutical Societies of Nigeria.